Usually when you pick up a survival guide, there's this very specific expectation of physical utility,
Right.
you
It's
know?
like building a fire.
Exactly. You're looking for instructions on how to build a fire with a shoelace or, how to purify stagnant water or maybe how to dress a wound in the wild.
Hmm.
It's entirely about surviving the physical wilderness. But, I mean, think about your own life right now. The greatest threat to your daily survival probably isn't a bear attack or getting lost in the woods.
Absolutely not.
The wilderness we're all trying to navigate is human society. The real threats are like complete societal upheaval, sudden economic chaos, or just the crushing, overwhelming pressure of navigating modern life without just losing your mind.
Yeah. And the wilderness of the everyday is often, well, it's far more treacherous than an actual forest because the dangers are invisible.
Right.
We're really talking about surviving a crisis of meaning here. Like,
Hmm.
how do you maintain your psychological architecture when all the normal rules of your era just seem to evaporate overnight?
And that's exactly why today we are taking you on a deep dive into a text that attempts to answer exactly that. We're unpacking a really fascinating collection of 3 philosophical essays.
Yeah.
They were written in late 2022 by an author named Xu Feng, and collectively they're titled Knowledge of Being Human.
And the mission for this deep dive is completely devoid of the usual self-help fluff.
Oh, totally.
This is not a guide on how to be a saint. It's not going to teach you how to get rich or climb the corporate ladder or, win a popularity contest.
No, not at all.
Instead, we're extracting a raw, surprisingly blunt, and incredibly practical survival guide for maintaining your fundamental dignity and humanity when everything around you is falling apart.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the bluntness of the source material right out of the gate is just so refreshing.
It really is.
The text explicitly states that the goal of, quote, being human, it isn't to win praise. It's not about being a goody two-shoes or a pillar of the community. The stated goal is simply to avoid living like a ghost, monster, beast, or demon. It strips away all the vanity and basically says, let's just focus on surviving with your soul intact.
And to understand the mechanics of how to actually do that, we have to look at the author's core metaphor, which really frames the entire philosophy.
Okay, lay it on us.
So imagine a barren landscape during a severe, years-long drought or a massive, blinding sandstorm.
Wow, okay.
Almost everything on the surface is dead, uprooted, or just blown away. But there are always a few patches of grass that stay stubbornly green and anchored.
Right, despite the chaos.
Exactly. The text argues that those specific plants survive because they have driven their roots the absolute deepest into the earth. The surface chaos doesn't matter if the roots hold.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So in human terms, the text argues that those deep roots are your basic integrity and decency. Like that is your anchor in the storm.
Yes.
So the author gives us these foundational rules to grow those roots. And I mean, some of them are incredibly intense.
Oh, yeah. Very strict.
Take rule number 1, never break a promise. The text warns that a single broken promise essentially ruins your life and is nearly impossible to ever remedy.
It's absolute.
Right. And so what does this all mean? Like, if I break one single promise, is my life actually over?
Yeah.
To me, it feels like these rules are about establishing a personal gravitational pull. Like when the world loses its gravity and everyone around you is just floating away into chaos, your absolute word is the heavy boots keeping you securely on the ground.
What's fascinating here is the underlying logic of why that absolute strictness matters so much in a crisis.
Yeah.
In a highly unpredictable, rumor-filled world where institutions might fail or societal norms might just collapse, trust becomes the only tangible asset.
Oh, that's a good point.
Your word and your internal moral compass, they are the only currencies that do not experience inflation.
Wow.
Think about the mechanics of a chaotic society. If the banks fail and the courts are closed, your reputation for absolute reliability is literally the only credit system left. If you break a promise, you devalue your own currency to zero, locking yourself out of the only human safety net that remains.
That gravity completely extends to how we're instructed to treat everything around us, too. The text mandates this profound, almost overwhelming level of gratitude.
Yes, the drop of water concept.
Exactly. It says you must remember even a drop of water-sized favor for the rest of your life.
Right.
It specifically lists showing lifelong respect to parents, teachers, anyone who has ever helped you, and even past intimate partners. You carry that gratitude forever, regardless of how the relationship ended.
And it also extends outward to the non-human world, which establishes this mechanism of universal respect.
Yeah, the animal stuff.
Right, there is a specific mandate to respect life, explicitly pointing out that you should never harm snakes, turtles, or cranes.
Which is so specific.
It is.
Yeah.
But this isn't just about animal rights. It's a psychological positioning. Well, by refusing to harm even the creatures that most people find repulsive or maybe irrelevant, you reinforce your own position within a much larger interconnected web of existence.
Oh, I see.
You basically train your brain to recognize that you are not the supreme ruler of your environment. You're simply a participant in it.
And you have to hold that psychological positioning no matter what the crowd is doing.
Exactly.
There's a rule that says you must adhere to the law even if 99 out of 100 people around you are breaking it.
Yeah.
You don't get to look around and say, well, everyone else is looting this store, or, everyone else is cheating on their taxes, so I might as well join in. You stand firm.
Right.
But the text pairs this with a really fascinating rule about endurance. It says you can endure endless humiliation, but you must never easily kneel, because once you kneel, it is incredibly hard to stand back up.
Yeah. We are really looking at the psychological threshold of submission there.
Okay.
Enduring humiliation is a passive survival tactic. It's just letting the storm blow over you.
Right, bending like the grass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But kneeling, whether physically or metaphorically surrendering your core dignity, is an active dismantling of your own structure.
Wow.
Once you cross that line and submit, the internal architecture that holds you upright just shatters. The effort required to rebuild that self-respect is immense.
Yeah.
So you can bend to the wind of humiliation,
Yeah.
but you cannot uproot yourself by kneeling.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, we are building this heavy-rooted internal gravity of integrity and, endless gratitude. We're anchoring ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if you look at the next set of rules, the text completely pivots to building these massive, invisible defensive walls against other people.
It's a striking tension for sure.
It really is. We
Yeah.
have to be endlessly grateful, but we should be absolutely terrified of owing anyone a favor.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the paradox resolves itself pretty perfectly.
Okay.
The text vehemently warns against financial debt, but it reserves its absolute harshest warnings for debts of favor. It describes a favor as a rope that binds gods.
A rope that binds gods. That phrasing is incredible.
It's powerful. The mechanism here is leverage. If you owe a debt of favor, you have basically handed the remote control of your life over to someone else.
It's like the author is telling you to wear a social hazmat suit.
Ah, yeah, exactly.
You want to protect your energy from the toxic entanglement of other people's expectations. If you owe someone a favor, you're trapped in their orbit for life.
Right.
You've compromised that internal gravity we just talked about because now their gravity is pulling you off your center.
This entire second section of the essays basically functions as a masterclass in energy preservation.
Yeah.
Like, how do you move through a chaotic society without getting drained dry?
Right.
The author advises a form of social distancing long before it was, a public health term.
Oh, totally.
You are explicitly told to stay away from overly hot or popular, powerful figures.
Interesting.
The logic is simple thermodynamics. If you bask in their artificial heat, you become dependent on it.
And then what?
Well, when their heat inevitably dissipates,
Mm.
when they fall from grace or lose power, you freeze to death alongside them.
Oh, wow. And it's not just the powerful you have to avoid entangling with. There's a stark, almost harsh warning about pity.
Yeah, this one is tough.
If you're listening to this and you consider yourself a highly empathetic person, this part might actually sting. The text explicitly says do not tie yourself to a pitiful person's chariot just because you feel sorry for them.
Empathy is a natural human trait, but the text is really warning against the structural collapse that happens when you take on someone else's chaos as your own personal project.
Right.
If someone is driving their chariot off a cliff, you can throw them a rope, but you absolutely cannot attach your vehicle to theirs.
Because then you go over too.
Exactly. If you do, their momentum will drag you down with them. It is all about strict, uncompromising boundaries.
Those boundaries around information and judgment are super strict too.
Oh, definitely.
We're told to accumulate verbal virtue, meaning no gossip, zero.
None.
There's a specific rule against judging consensual romantic affairs between adults. It basically says keep your mouth shut and stop trying to take the moral high ground on things that don't involve you.
Right.
And absolute privacy is demanded, like never snoop through phones, never read other people's letters, and don't pry into the private lives of your loved ones.
Look at the underlying mechanism of gossip and judgment, though. They require massive amounts of cognitive and emotional energy.
It's true, it is exhausting.
By refusing to judge others or meddle in their private affairs, you are hoarding your own life force. Snooping breeds anxiety. Judgment breeds conflict.
Yeah.
The text is basically telling you to seal those leaks in your energy tank so you can use that fuel for your own survival.
It's a radically minimalist approach to human interaction.
It really is.
Speaking of which, if you thought your social circle was small, the text introduces the two friends rule.
Ah, yes.
It sets a highly specific benchmark. You only need exactly 2 sincere, mutually helpful friends in your entire life. Just 2.
Just 2.
Any more than that, and you're likely just engaging in superficial networking that drains your energy without providing real support.
The psychological bandwidth required to maintain true, deeply reciprocal relationships is immense.
Yeah.
The author really cuts through the modern illusion of needing hundreds of acquaintances. And this strict categorization of who truly matters brings us to one of the most intriguing and honestly likely controversial boundaries in the text.
Oh, this one is wild.
The author explicitly advises against proactively reporting the crimes of your close relatives to the authorities.
That one really kind of stops you in your tracks,
Yeah.
It draws a massive, impenetrable wall around your immediate, most intimate circle, separating it entirely from the machinery of the state.
It prioritizes the primal biological bonds of kinship and immediate trust over abstract societal systems.
Right.
The author views human institutions and state laws as inherently flawed, shifting, and temporary. A law might change every decade, but the bond of family is an ancient natural law.
Okay, I see.
So reporting a relative breaks the deeper, older natural law in favor of a temporary human one.
So, if human interactions are fraught with these invisible ropes of favor, and we shouldn't listen to societal gossip, and we can't even rely on the moral frameworks of human institutions, where do we actually look for a map?
That is the big question.
Like, how do we figure out what is true? This transitions us to the author's answer, which is to just throw away the textbooks.
Yeah.
We're introduced to the concept of the wordless book of heaven.
Yeah, the wordless book is a metaphor for direct observation.
Okay.
The author makes the radical claim that true wisdom only comes from directly observing nature, animals, insects, and the raw phenomena of human society with your own eyes, rather than, reading what other people have written about them in books.
It gets incredibly spicy here.
Oh, very.
The text provocatively asserts that most human disciplines, things like politics, economics, sociology, the humanities, are essentially distorted garbage. They're short-sighted illusions created by humans to justify whatever era they happen to live in. The only exceptions the author makes are for the hard sciences, math, physics, biology, chemistry,
Right.
because those fields actually reveal nature's secrets. But I have to ask, are we supposed to just drop our degrees, ignore the news, and go stare at a tree?
Well, it sounds extreme, but let's examine the mechanism behind that argument.
Okay.
Nature provides an objective, immutable reality. A tree grows according to a set of physical laws that do not care about your political affiliation, your economic status, or who the current president is.
Right, that's fair.
Human disciplines, particularly the soft sciences, are frequently retrospective justifications for whoever holds power or whatever the current societal obsession is. They're built on shifting human desires.
Yeah.
The author specifically calls out modern successology, the entire massive industry of self-hustle culture and getting ahead, as a completely harmful scam.
It's a scam because it forces you to spend your life desperately paddling to catch what text calls societal bubbles.
Exactly.
It gives these incredibly relatable examples. Think about the frantic rush to buy houses because everyone says real estate only goes up.
Right.
Or farmers abandoning their ancestral land to crowd into polluted cities, or millions of college students clamoring and competing for a few secure civil service jobs.
Mm-hmm.
These are all waves, and the text warns that if you spend your life chasing these human-made waves, your entire existence ends up as a fragile bubble that will inevitably pop.
When you chase a societal wave, you are adopting a subjective human hustle.
Yeah.
You're letting the panicked crowd dictate your core values. But the wordless book of heaven, the objective reality of the natural world, teaches patience, cycles, and authenticity.
Wow.
Nature doesn't hustle. Gravity doesn't negotiate. They simply exist. By aligning yourself with those objective truths, you step out of the exhausting human bubble.
So if we aren't chasing success and we're actively ignoring all these societal bubbles and we've built these massive walls to keep out other people's drama, what are we actually supposed to do with our time on Earth?
That's the logical next step.
Right. This brings us to the final section of the text. which presents the ultimate philosophical paradox. It is this wild, beautiful mix of radical acceptance and lifelong, relentless creation.
The tension here is really brilliant. It starts with the concept of accepting fate.
Okay.
The fundamental idea is that the core trajectory of your life, your inherent genetic capabilities, the area you were born into, your starting socioeconomic conditions, is permanently set at birth.
The text says fighting your fate is as utterly impossible as trying to choose different parents after you are already born. You just can't do it.
Right.
And recognizing that impossibility is supposed to bring you deep peace. But wait, accepting your fate sounds incredibly passive.
It can sound that way, yeah.
If I'm listening to this, it sounds like an excuse to just give up and sit on the couch. But
Sure.
then, almost in the next breath, the author commands us to follow our true nature, to create out of nothing, and to keep a completely active, open mind until we're 80 years old.
Yes.
How do those two extremes fit together without breaking?
This raises an important question, and it's actually the exact crux of the entire philosophy.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Think of it through this mechanism. Fate is the canvas you were handed at birth.
A canvas.
Right. It has a specific size, a specific rough texture, and it exists in a specific time period. You cannot change the canvas.
Okay.
Spending your life screaming at the canvas because it isn't bigger or smoother is what causes human suffering.
Ah, I see. You're wasting energy fighting the perimeter.
Precisely.
Right.
But following your true nature and creation, that is the absolute unyielding freedom of what you choose to paint on that canvas.
No, wow.
You accept the boundary of the canvas, but within that boundary, you are infinitely free to mix the colors however you want.
And the text makes it vividly clear that following your true nature has absolutely nothing to do with vanity.
No, not at all.
True freedom isn't wanting a massive mansion or a bunch of servants. That is just you being enslaved by societal values again. True freedom is the ability to do what your inner self genuinely loves, completely divorced from the gaze of other people.
Yeah.
The examples the author uses are amazing. It's having the freedom to sing mountain songs in the street at midnight if the urge strikes you, or to work completely naked in the intense heat if you want to.
When you entirely remove the gaze of society and stop performing for an audience, you can focus on the mandate to constantly create.
Right.
The author argues that creation, making something out of nothing, whether it's art, a garden, or a new way of thinking, is the true source of spiritual sweetness.
Oh, I like that phrasing.
Material enjoyment is a fleeting chemical hit, but the act of creation is what actually sustains the human life force. And to ensure you can keep creating, you have to maintain a radically open mind.
Radically open. The text gives us this brilliant historical humbling to prove why rigidity is so dangerous.
It really does.
It points out that things that were once considered absolute, unquestionable moral truths by millions of people, like the horrific practice of foot binding or the erection of chastity arches for widows, are now universally seen by modern society as ignorant, cruel, and barbaric.
It forces a necessary perspective shift.
Yeah.
It requires us to realize that whatever we firmly believe is the absolute moral right today might be viewed as completely wrong or even laughable by future civilizations.
That's a wild thought.
We do not possess the final truth. Therefore, clinging to current societal dogmas is foolish. You have to stay open.
We have covered a massive amount of philosophical ground today on this deep dive. Let's pull the threads together for you.
That's good.
If you want to survive a chaotic world with your humanity and dignity intact, you need the deep roots of fundamental integrity, keeping your word when no one else does, and harboring endless gratitude for the smallest drops of water.
Right.
You need a social hazmat suit of strict boundaries to avoid the ropes of social debt and the exhausting drain of other people's drama.
You need to learn how to read the wordless book of objective natural reality, rather than getting swept up and popped in the bubbles of human hustle and successology.
Definitely.
And finally, you must find the spiritual sweetness in lifelong creation, accepting the specific canvas you were handed at birth, while painting on it with absolute, authentic freedom.
It is entirely about letting go of the illusions we are taught to desperately chase. And that brings us to one final thought for you to take away and mull over.
We've talked a lot about the individual applying these rules to protect themselves from a chaotic society. But imagine for a moment if everyone adopted this exact philosophy.
Okay.
If every single person refused to take on debts of favor, entirely stopped participating in the societal bubbles of ambition and economics, and only maintained exactly 2 friends, would our modern societal infrastructure completely collapse into isolation?
Wow.
Or would we finally achieve a state of raw, unfiltered natural harmony?
Are you watering a plastic plant? Or are you driving your roots deep into the real earth to survive the storm? Keep your feet on the ground, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.